raise some voices and get the people in the room. Well, it's really early on a Friday morning after a really long and amazing innovation week. So thank y'all all very much for coming and for sharing this time with us this morning. Welcome to the Metro Atlanta Chamber. We lined up a beautiful view and beautiful weather for you today. So if this is your first time here, we're just thrilled to have you. My name is Cynthia Curry. I'm on the Economic Development team at the Metro Atlanta Chamber, and I help build up our smart cities and clean tech ecosystems, which is such a joy. So we really welcome all of you here. Thank you to Deborah Lamb. She's one of my absolute favorite, closest partners, leading inclusive smart cities at Georgia Tech, and also founding of the PIN, Partnership for Inclusive Innovation. Thank you to John Hudson, hey John, for all his marketing that he does for all of our efforts. And thank y'all for coming here. So I get the extreme pleasure of welcoming Senator Halpern here. Senator Sonia Halpern she's been in Georgia, what, 20-ish years? She spent a decent amount of time in New York, really building up community and doing a lot of work there. And then she came to Atlanta to work for our beloved Cox Enterprises, who does such wonderful things for the community. So we're happy that she made it to Georgia, and now she serves, kind of really serving the needs of the community. She's a former entrepreneur, so she definitely understands the challenges that we all face. She's got a slew of accolades. I just picked out a couple. But among her many awards, she was named among the top 100 Black women of influence by the Atlanta Business League. The YMCA named her the 2019 Volunteer of the Year, and also a Woman of Achievement. She does so much work to really help build up our community, and we're thrilled that she's joined us today, and thrilled that she does the work that she does to make our innovation community equitable and help make sure that we have a really strong business environment for everyone to thrive. So thank you for joining us for our Innovation for All discussion. I love seeing all the varied faces in the room. It's exactly what we're looking for. So please join me in welcoming Senator Halpern.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Cynthia, for the introduction. I am thrilled to be with everybody this morning, and it's really already one of those fall Atlanta days. I started off like, I gotta put on like tights because it was cold. It's gonna be 60 degrees by the time we're done with this day. But I want to start just by thanking the Metro Atlanta Chamber and the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation for hosting this conversation. And you all know these events don't just happen by accident. They take a lot of thought, collaboration, and planning. So first, let me give thanks to Jamal Lewis and Caleb Burns from the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation. And a special thank you to Katie Kilpatrick, Alex Gonzalez, and Cynthia Curry from the Chamber. And as you just heard, and as you know, this is Innovation Week in the city of Atlanta. And there are three words that I've already mentioned this morning that really underscore why we're here today. And they are collaboration, partnership, innovation, and inclusion. And innovation for far too long has really been defined in such narrow terms. And the thought has been that only certain people with a particular education or particular upbringing or particular kind of profile are the only people who could be innovative. And of course, that cannot be further from the truth. So innovation is all around us, and in many ways, it is the backbone of our city and our state. And I want to just share with you a little bit about my background. I mean, I was one of the folks who started way back in the early days of selling internet advertising. And nobody knew what we were doing. It was completely a brand new world. We had to really be creative in the way that we thought about selling advertising, approaching clients and companies, and trying to get them to actually invest in the product that we were selling and marketing. And it was challenging and difficult, and people didn't understand it, and it seemed weird. I mean, today it doesn't, but it seemed weird, and it wasn't easy. And I know each and every single one of you can identify with that because we have the same challenges today. Innovative that hasn't been done before or is being thought about in a different way. How do you connect to the people who need to invest in you? How do you connect to the people who would be best served by the service that you're providing if they don't understand it or trust it? I did move down here, so I started in New York at ESPN, in ESPN Internet Ventures. I was actually one of the first, I was their only ad salesperson on the cable side that got moved to the internet side. And it is because of the fact that they knew that I would not be handcuffed to the traditional way of doing things, and I could be thoughtful about how do we approach this brand new area, think about it differently, and pitch it in different ways. And so I moved down here from Cox Interactive Media and ultimately ended up at Cox Newspapers, where I was training the top, whether you were classified advertising sales, newspaper sales, of the top 4 newspapers at Cox Newspapers. And they all were like, what? The newspaper is like gonna be the thing. It's always been the thing. This internet stuff, we cannot be bothered to package this in. Fast forward, and you see that everybody's doing internet advertising, and in fact, our papers are in fact suffering now. But I share that a little bit with you to say that I respect so much the work that you're doing, and I understand how difficult it is, and I encourage everybody to keep going, because your ideas and the things that you are trying to make happen are gonna connect, and it's gonna take everybody else time to catch up to where you are, because you're the innovators. And innovation and entrepreneurship really do go hand in hand. And so it is not only a proven track record to solving real problems, but it's also got a track to wealth creation in our economy and in this country. Just a couple of stats. Based on the recent census data, there are more than 30,000 minority-owned firms in Georgia, but that only represents 21.6% of the total business in our state. Lots of opportunity for growth. And when it comes to women, Atlanta is ranked 8th in the nation for the number of women-owned businesses. And those businesses are becoming more and more significant in the economic ecosystem. So our state is one of the fastest growing states in the country, and diversity is our strength. And we need to make more room for innovation to grow these small, women-owned and minority-owned firms, because it's the key to economic development. And it's really the key to why we are here today, and the key to the work that the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation is doing. And it's the key to finally finding parity also across industries and the workforce. So I want to congratulate all of our Innovate for All project panelists. We've got India Hayes from Mini City, Kashi Sehgal from Retaaza, and Dr. Lynette Wilson-Phillips from Kids Doc on Wheels. So I personally am excited about what we're going to learn here today together as we move the support for collaboration, partnership, inclusivity, and innovation in our state forward. So let me thank also Eileen Lee, who will be moderating the panel, and for providing the Lola as a place for women to thrive and connect. Thank you, and let's begin.
Thank you, Senator Hubbard. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's lovely to be here. Happy Atlanta Innovation Week, and it's really nice to be the final day to end 2 weeks of festivities, gatherings. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are at the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation, because I think this is kind of a little bit of our coming out We started during the pandemic, and we haven't really had an all-out invite in terms of what we've been doing the past couple of years. So we're super excited. First of all, let me recognize the team at the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation. So we have Stephanie here, Jamal, Kayla, Cody, Cody right there, and Clarence back there. So please feel free to reach out to us. And let me also acknowledge Cynthia and Margaret here for working together on this, because this has been, and Polly right there, who have been instrumental in pulling this together. So we call this an Innovate for All breakfast, and it's pretty intentional in a couple key things. One, look at how you're seated. This is not a lecture style kind of event. It's really intended for conversation and collaboration. So with that, can I just take a minute for you to just ask someone at your table, introduce who you are, and just tell them the last application you used on your phone and why. Just take a minute to introduce yourself. This kind of community is powerful, it's dynamic, and I think often, and I can speak for myself, I've been in the innovation space for a long time, and it can be very lonely. It can be incredibly lonely. I find myself in spaces where often I'm the only one, and I find myself thinking about, how I can do more and do better. And I feel now, at this point in time, in Atlanta, I am not alone, because we have a very powerful gathering of people who share a common vision and dynamic about how we think about innovation, technology, and change for good. And I start with that question because actually, whatever your experience with technology and application has been, whether it's been good or bad or that experience, it's definitely an important part in our lives, right? Like, it's something that is inevitable. And we started the partnership with the explicit notion that technology, innovation, and data are important drivers for shared economic prosperity. And traditionally, they have not been used that way, either as a tool or as an outcome. So we started the partnership thinking, how can we harness innovation, technology, and those types of opportunities to really bring shared economic prosperity across the state, across sectors, across demographics, and across communities. And this is an important part and fundamental to what we think at the partnership. How we've done that over the past couple of years is pretty unique, and we've actually done a lot of research in terms of looking for other peer groups and organizations like us, and we haven't found too many. And this makes us pretty special here in Atlanta and in Georgia. It sets the model. Let me tell you about this. So there's 4 distinct things that make us pretty unique. And when I say us, I mean the collective us. 1, we are a public-private partnership. That means we have funding from the state, but we also have funding from the private sector and pooled resources. So that's coming together for external impact. This is represented in terms of our board of advisors, where we have C-suite, corporate, civic, state, university partners all coming together for the common good. These people are not driven by a quarterly return. They're not driven by personal, corporate or political agendas. They're really trying to think about what is the long-term sustainable good for the state and for the people in the state. 2, we are statewide in terms of we embrace geographic diversity. Georgia's pretty unique. We have rural, urban, everything in between. There's a certain dynamic in terms of our communities that are happening across the state, and we want to mobilize those communities not only to be a model for growth, but showcase it how it can be done well, both in terms of its process, but also in terms of its outcome. 3, we really think about inclusive innovation as increasing access and opportunities for everyone to innovate. But that innovation isn't the end state. You're not just innovating to innovate. It's really a way for us to be empowered to drive that shared economic prosperity. So our goal as a partnership is to really think about how we can allow more innovations to happen for that innovating well and for good simultaneously. It's about lowering the barriers to entry for who can innovate. Senator Halpern talked about this. It's thinking about not your traditional profile innovators, but thinking more beyond who can be an innovator, how they can innovate, and that you can innovate well and for good simultaneously. It does not need to be mutually exclusive. And then the 4th and most important part of who we are is what we do. What is our structure? And in that sense, we're a hybrid model. We're a cross between a foundation, a funded intermediary, but also what we define as an action tank, opposite of think tank, in the sense that we are actively having projects on the ground and coupling it with social capital. So it's not enough that you get a grant. It's thinking about how you can provide that financial with the social capital together in terms of who do you know, how can that network support you, and how can your success be optimized based on the people around you. And it's this type of collaboration that makes it super impactful beyond just the singular. And to that regard, we have 4 main pillars, right? So 4 characteristics, 4 main pillars that are really fired up. I call them as, each pillar can be a standalone in the sense that there's a flagship program, there's networks, there's emerging opportunities that you can go to, but if you put them together, they're like the Avengers. So, it's really about, an important cross-pillar, cross-collaboration movement that goes beyond them. 2 of these pillars, student engagement that Cody leads and workforce development that Clarence leads, is about trying to focus on the next generation of innovators, at the individual level. Students, early career professionals, really thinking about that. The other 2 are focused on organizations. Who are the organizations? Workforce development and community research. Organizations, communities, how can they create public-private partnerships? How can they work together to move forward? Notice we are not focused on any specific emerging or established industry, because the idea is that every industry, whether it's healthcare, cybersecurity, tech, etc., will involve student engagement. It will involve workforce development. And so we are flexible enough to move into the logistics space, the manufacturing space, etc., because we have student engagement, workforce development. We are mobilizing those pillars to cut across established and emerging industries in different sectors going forward. And just a little bit about, what each of these pillars are showcasing. We just graduated our most diverse and largest Smart Community Core class, which covers 3 levels of intersectionality. It means that we take students from any year, rising sophomores in higher ed, all the way up to PhD students, any major. We very much include hard sciences with the soft sciences. You don't necessarily need to be an engineer. You don't necessarily need to be a computer scientist. We really think about that diversity in terms of majors and skill sets. And now any university and college in Georgia to come together and work in teams, full-time, fully funded over the summer on public innovation civic tech projects. Not only does the community benefit from this type of energy and capacity, but the students get experiential learning and public service. You can learn about civic tech and public innovation in the classroom, or in my mind, you can be at the forefront doing it, working hand in hand with the community. And so you can see that we had 17 plus disciplines, 11 universities represented, working on 16 projects across the state. This type of intentional collaboration, putting different university students together, putting different disciplines together, has been a major success factor for us in terms of how we think about next generation innovators. Secondly, workforce development that Clarence runs. We think about how to focus on early career professionals where they can spend 6 months in the private sector, 6 months in the public sector, full year, fully funded, to not only understand a subject matter expertise along key growth areas, whether it's sustainability or energy or logistics, but know how to navigate fluently across different sectors, knowing the different agendas and cultures that could come out of it, with the intention that you will be able to have better understanding for collaboration coming out of it. Now we know this is pretty unique because if you're in the corporate sector, you have that fast track rotational management career, whether you do it in strategy, HR, tech, and if you're in the federal government, you might have that with different departments. But if you are in Georgia and you want to focus here in Georgia, there's nothing like that here. So to have that experience, that 6 months in the public sector, 6 months in the private sector, it's pretty phenomenal coming together. The next one is community research, led by Stephanie, focuses on the community. And we have a couple local government officials here and community members, Brian and Carolyn and others, but it understands what the community need is, whether it's transportation, research or transportation, energy, housing, whatever that community priority is, we think about how to put multidisciplinary research for collaboration. Not only does the research advances because it gets implemented outside the laboratories and academic publication, but the community gets critical access to R&D that they otherwise wouldn't have. And so this type of community research collaboration has been phenomenal based on our work. We have 20 active projects across the state. Our latest cohort, which was our 5th cohort, included the city of Atlanta, the city of Warner Robins on a public safety project, Henry County, and Athens-Clarke County. So a mix of cities, counties. Our smallest size city was about 25,000 people. Our largest, 1 million plus. Different geographies, different population levels. Right here, the City of Atlanta project that I will share with you involves the west side in Thomasville Heights, which I'm sure people are familiar, and it's using drones to conduct energy audits in the Thomasville Heights neighborhood. And the idea is that if you can use drones to conduct energy audits in Thomasville Heights, think about how it could be applied in other neighborhoods. And it's a project with Georgia Tech and the Morehouse School of Medicine. So again, multi-university, multidisciplinary, coming together for community impact, but based on empowering the community because the community is driving the needs and making sure that they can utilize the research further. Finally, I'll talk about our last pillar, economic opportunity, and I won't say too much about it because you're actually going to hear it in this panel in terms of what we've actually done. But fundamentally, with economic opportunity, led by Jamal, is that we believe it's not just startups that can innovate. Now, there's a lot of programs and support for startups, and that's great, but to us, we think startups can innovate, nonprofits, small businesses, schools, local governments. There's a lot more entities and organizations that can innovate. And if you have a proven program, service, tech deployment that's ready to scale, we want to fund that scale. And we provide a financial grant grant, so it's a grant, as well as social capital. Again, to try to make sure that we amplify the work, we try to promote this work even further. So it's definitely a project and a program that we're very proud of. You can see actually in terms of our stats, our projects, without even saying too much, have gotten additional funding, created new businesses, supported others, and in our mind is a better representation of Georgia innovators than in the past. And we've been really proud to promote that. Our next application process is going to be coming up. So you'll hear more from Jamal in the coming weeks. But this is really another part of our promotion in terms of how can we help, how can we support, and how can we amplify your work. Just a bit about our impact. You can see at this point, we are very much a startup ourselves. You know, we came out during the pandemic, but we have 30 plus active projects. You know, we've really mobilized higher ed between us being in the USG system, secondly, technical college system of Georgia, and then even third with the Georgia Independent College Association that includes the HBCUs and the smaller liberal arts colleges, all coming together to think about multidisciplinary research as well as experiential learning to support the community. It changes the way that we think about higher ed being an anchor institution for the community. Tech deployment continues to be very high, and our students have put together almost 25,000 hours devoted to the community, which is incredible. And that's kind of the next generation innovators that we want to see. People who are actively engaged in the public, actively engaged in the community for good. We are the startup, so like I want to say is that we deployed about 1.3 million last year, relatively small, but our projects provided a 1.7 match. And then they've gotten an additional 6.2 million. And it's because of social and financial capital coming together for success. This upcoming fiscal year, we're probably going to provide about 2.8, and we're already thinking about more than that. So we're super excited to really be part of the community and mobilize. And you can see that, you know, with Mayor Dickens as the chair of the U.S. Conference of Mayors for public-private partnerships, and university leaders coming together on public-private partnerships, this type of trend is growing further. Let me just end with this one video, and then we'll let our panel come and talk more about it.
The Partnership for Inclusive Innovation has made much progress in 2 short years. In addition to setting new programs in motion, we're proud to have made a real impact in advancing innovation and inclusivity across the entire state of Georgia.
Today, we have an update on our progress. But first, here are members of our board to explain what the partnership is about and the 4 hallmarks that set us apart.
The partnership is a unique public-private coalition. We have galvanized long-term commitments and collective decision-making to leverage complementary expertise, experience, and resources that represent the best of what our public institutions and private enterprises have to offer.
The partnership serves all of Georgia, the entire state, from centers of existing innovation excellence to frequently overlooked rural hamlets and every point in between, to assure the whole state is moving towards innovation together.
The partnership believes in the broadest definition of inclusive innovation. We work to increase access and expand geographic, racial, gender, and socioeconomic equity and opportunity for all to innovate to drive economic and community growth.
Finally, the partnership doesn't simply provide financial assistance. It uses a hybrid model that combines grant making with hands-on program operation and infrastructure for researchers, students, nonprofits, community groups, and small businesses across the state.
Together, these 4 hallmarks form a force multiplier. Here's some highlights from the past year that showcase the partnership's impact and results.
The Working Farms Fund, the first of its kind in the country, helps preserve farmland in perpetuity from encroaching urban and suburban sprawl. The fund has purchased 7 farms and secured 675 acres of farmland for 31 new farmers. 85% of the farms are historically underserved or women-owned farm businesses. The City of Savannah leveraged data analytics and machine learning from the Georgia SMART program to deal with vacant and blighted properties in the community. The multidisciplinary research team analyzed more than 2 million merged real estate data records, including over 104,000 properties, and developed a machine learning algorithm that reaches 87% to 95% accuracy in predicting vacant and deteriorated land or structures. On average, each blighted property identified and ameliorated saves the City of Savannah more than $1,300 a year. The City of Valdosta revolutionized its traffic system and helped first responders arrive faster when seconds and minutes matter the most. The project connected all 128 traffic signals throughout the city and trained 72 firefighters operating 10 fire trucks on signal preemption. This resulted in time savings of more than 10 critical seconds per intersection and won multiple national and international awards. This year, our impact has included more than 30 active projects, including 10 economic development districts, 14 community research collaborations, 16 colleges and universities, and more than 30 multidisciplinary researchers. Such intentional inclusion has resulted in 24 new businesses created and supported, 71 access to capital opportunities created for entrepreneurs, more than 170 technologies, and more than 25,000 student hours devoted to civic tech projects.
The progress the partnership has made this year shows just how much we can accomplish when we work together.
So you probably noticed that there's some people who were recognized in this video that are in the room. But also want to acknowledge John Hudson and Brent Culture for doing this video for us. They have been a key partner in everything that we are doing at the partnership. So let me stop there and let me introduce the panel that you will hear more about as part of our portfolio. So thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Eileen Lee, the co-founder of the Lola. We are a women's club and community here in Atlanta. If you haven't checked us out, we're just across the street from Pond City Market in Old Fourth Ward. And I'm honored to be participating on this panel today and learning more about the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation. We've been around for a little over 3 years now, so a good chunk of the pandemic, but our DEI efforts, we call them our intentionally inclusive efforts. So for us, the priority has always been how can we build community, collaboration, and connection amongst professional women, but also ensure that we are creating community and space for all women to belong, particularly women of color. So I'm honored today to introduce our panels and hear more from them, but also we all wanted to share and highlight how amazing it is to be an all-woman and women of color panel today. So thank you to all the organizers and hosts for doing that. That is a pleasure and a celebration in itself. But yeah, I'd love to start to introduce each panelist, their projects, and if you would share your why.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is India Hayes. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Mini City. And Mini City is a compassionate tech platform. So we hear all the time about really great and innovative startups, but we love at the Mini City team to point out that we are a compassionate tech. And essentially what our platform does is it connects the homeless and homeless care providers to much needed resources and next steps. So with our tablet software, citizens in need, municipalities, those that provide services for them can connect to legal forms of identification, government resources that are really needed, employment opportunities, and more. I think my why really resonates from the fact that And I can speak for our entire team, right? We have a very diverse team from all over the world, largely comprised of communities of color. But essentially, our why really is rooted in the fact that homelessness or experiencing being unhoused predominantly affects communities of color. So this is something that really hits close to home for us, that we're all very passionate about, and really powers us to kind of take that next step and help those in need, right? And so I will say the homeless citizens that we've assisted over the years in Atlanta really are reflective of Atlanta. They're very diverse, just like everyone in this room, but I am really powered by the desire to see all of our citizens not just kind of existing, but thriving.
Good morning. There we go. Hi everyone, I'm Kashi Sehgal, and I am founder and CEO of Retaaza. So just a little bit about my personal why, and that's how Retaaza got started. My personal why is creating positive impact in the community around me, whether that's one person, a group of people, and using creative problem solving to do that. I think that's what we mean by innovation. So Retaaza was born out of the pandemic when people were not going to restaurants, and we were helping restaurant workers who were very near and dear to my heart. But what was going on with the people who were growing our food? So I dug deep. We're an ag state. We spend $75 billion a year on agriculture, and wanted to know what was going on with our farmers, and it turns out they struggle every day getting their food to market, selling their food. We're asking them to be experts on everything, from sales and marketing to how to better put their soil together, what needs to go in it, machinery, everything. So we are an organization set out to helping farmers. We help them sell their food. When they can't sell their food, we buy it for a fair price. We've created new local marketplaces so that we have supply and demand every day. Where they're just-in-time resource, we pay them a fair price for this food, and then we also get this food to people who are hungry in our communities. So it's a for-profit solution that's sustainable, it's repeatable. We're creating a model where community can help community. So that's what we're doing.
Good morning. Good morning. This is truly an awesome opportunity and blessing to be here. I'm Dr. Lynette Wilson-Phillips. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, and I grew up in a majority environment. And while I was in medical school, I was a part of a minority program to attract African Americans primarily to the Medical University of South Carolina. And it was during that program that I looked ahead. I was one of 5 that came into that class. I looked ahead and saw the other African American students that would make it to the second year of medical school, and ultimately we would have to take step 1 of the medical board exam. And I saw that they were not making it past that step 1. And there wasn't any remediation or anything provided to them to support them to be able to achieve their goal. I requested of the dean of the college at that point to allow me to repeat my second year. And he said, why do you want to do that? You passed all of your classes. And I said, but I'm not comfortable with going in to take step 1. And I didn't want to repeat personally what I had seen those that had gone ahead of me and were sitting out of medical school. And so they allowed me to do it. And it was the first time that I didn't really realize what I was doing or had done until several years later. But basically, me taking that year over allowed me to go past step 1 and proceed to being a pediatrician. And so you say, well, what does that got to do with what you're doing now? So I came to Atlanta for residency at Emory, completed that, and always had the desire to go into private practice. And so I did that for 26, 27 years. I established 3 pediatric locations here throughout Metro Atlanta. And then about 8 years ago, the crisis came in my private practice model, where I knew that if I became over 65% Medicaid, that I would not be sustainable. And so it happened, and the concept of Kids Stop on Wheels developed because I was riding from the east side of Atlanta to the west side to all the way to Smyrna to provide comprehensive care to patients that had Medicaid. They're a very diverse population, from Spanish to the most highly populated immigrant area in Clarkston. I provided the services. I was driving home to Charleston to visit my parents and everything, and it was like, okay, we need a name for this concept of virtual health to provide that continuity and consistency. And then when you look at the state of Georgia, the population that has a lack of access to obstetricians is over 50%. The population that has lack of access to pediatricians is over 40%. And I ask of you to think back to when you were a child growing up and your primary clinician was a pediatrician, and you probably transitioned out of that pediatrician's care at 21 years old. That's not happening here in the state of Georgia. It's not happening in the rural areas, and it's not happening sometimes right here in the Metro Atlanta area. So Kids Stop on Wheels was a birth of passion, prayer, and a determination to make sure that children had access to health care, because if they're not healthy, they can't learn. And so the program that we've established, it does an initial assessment of their health, just like they get an initial assessment of their academics when they enter the school year. Each child that enrolls in the program gets an assessment of their health. And from there, we take it and maximize their health throughout the entire academic year. And it can't be done with me working in a bricks and mortar. It's because of my team that's here to support me today, from the chair of our board, Candace Daniels. Please stand up, be recognized. Appreciate it. He's one of my protege patients. And then we have Pete Alexander, who took his concept of being financial developer with the Boy Scouts. He brought it over to Kids Stop on Wheels. And then we have Kim Sly, who is a transplant from Detroit, that is our community navigator. And we have our Vice President of Development, that is Erica Gay. And I also have with me my #1 financial planner and supporter, Daphne Simmons, and her assistant, Christian, must have stepped out. But Christian is a phenomenal student. He's an African-American male that has only seen 2 years of in-person school. Has been homeschooled and has scored a phenomenal score at 13 years old on the SAT, being homeschooled by his mother, Daphne Simmons, who's teaching him how to think out of the box. So when we think innovative, I think Daphne Simmons. So thank you. That's my intro. That's my why. And thank you very much.
Thank you. The common thread is clear that this all came out of a passion and identifying the needs in the community. And I know that statistically, when women are in leadership positions and starting companies, they're the ones that look to give back to the community first. So it's amazing to hear the shared experiences in your stories. And I know when I spoke with Kashi before this, we were saying it's all women, this is awesome. Normally in panels, it's, majority men, and the woman tends to get asked the question of how do you do it all, how do you balance your work and life, so you won't get those questions from me today. You're welcome to share any of that, but I won't be asking any of those. So we're going to dig into you all as entrepreneurs, your journey, how you are creating impact in these communities, and India, I want to start with you on how are you using innovation and technology to make a social impact and create economic prosperity.
So with Mini City, we really are rooted in tech, but I think people are really surprised when they learn some of our team members, myself included, backgrounds is not in engineering or coding, right? We really lead with this desire to help our communities with social impact and really understand what are their pain points, what are their top unmet needs, not what we assume. And so with Mini City, again, we're using a tech platform right at some of the most densely populated areas. So from shelters to the airport, little 5-point station. We're not like front and center glaring, but our software is there and it is accessible. And we really lean into the fact that tech can be everywhere. It can make opportunity hyper accessible, which is really great. A lot of times it can feel like tech is overwhelming, ubiquitous. It's everywhere and you can't get away from it. And sometimes that can make individuals and citizens really fearful of tech, right? Am I being tracked? What is this data being used for? And so with Mini City, we really try to, again, lead with compassionate tech, make sure we're making our citizens feel comfortable and connecting to what they're asking for, not what we assume they need. And so we really laid our foundation around connecting them to legal forms of ID. That's often overlooked, but it's like that invisible key that unlocks next steps. But over the years, especially during the pandemic, we started to hear a lot of, you've made this difficult process of getting a birth record, which was taking months and months, so much easier and faster. Can you help me apply for food stamps? What about Medicaid? What about temporary assistance? And I will admit, I'll be very transparent. We're like, no, we're just gonna stick to this. We know how to do this well. That's what we know can help you get you on your feet. But again, we wanna make sure citizens are thriving. And so we started to add out different features to have a richer impact, and really by listening to the community. So government resources, we started getting into having them store their top unmet needs and goals. Other different opportunities that are provided by partners such as Comcast, because we know digital inequity is really large, right? And so we really, again, leaned into that tech to help citizens really feel like, okay, I'm on my way, right? I'm not just getting emergency response, which is needed for sure, but also I can feel like I can get a first job, accept this great opportunity, enroll in school, all these things we kind of overlook that really aren't accessible without those critical resources.
I love the word compassionate tech when you introduced yourself, and that's a new word I was not aware of, but you also had mentioned that you wanted to create an accessible and adaptable human-forward or human-centered approach, and how that's reflected in your own team. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, again, when you're around so many innovators, you feel like, okay, I know what's best, or I've researched this, or I've looked at this for hours. But again, with our team members, I think way when we first started with Mini City, so we actually came out of a hackathon from Goody Nation on how can we hack and make our nation or our cities more inclusive? How can we hack gentrification? And that really stuck out to me. How do we hack gentrification? What does that even mean? So we had all these ideas we arrived to. And we actually were focused on water access, which during the pandemic and COVID makes a lot of sense, right? But at the time, it was a bit far-fetched. We were coming at it rooted in our backgrounds of working in water aid, international aid, but we're really not listening to the community, if I'm gonna be honest. And so, again, that really helped us from an early standpoint, being in programs like that, really shape our mindset to listen to the community. It's one thing to say, I want to create impact and change amongst my community members, but then come from it a standpoint of I know what that change looks like. You have to really get in the center of the community. So for years before starting Mini City, just personally, a lot of our team members were volunteering at women's shelters, children's shelters. So again, this was years before even starting Mini City. So one, even taking some of that knowledge and having to remove it and start again and go into one-on-one and find out what this community needs is what really leads human-centered approaches.
Thank you. Well, we wanted to share some of the barriers and challenges that these founders face in their innovation and entrepreneurship journey. And thinking about what barriers and challenges entrepreneurs don't face. Definitely wanted to open that question up to the whole panel. But Dr. Lynette, I know you were sharing, no big deal that you have 3 practices and a mobile unit, but could you talk to us about some of the barriers and challenges you faced along the way?
Had to keep being creative to be sustainable. But I would say that one of the major barriers, and I'm happy that I went on and did it as a nonprofit for Kids Doc on Wheels, is because every child that walks into a pediatric practice should receive the same consistent quality of care. They should not be treated based on their insurance. And I was very determined to make that happen in my private practice. But as I said a minute ago, once it became 85% Medicaid, it was like, how do you do this and maintain the quality in the physicians, the quality in the services that you're providing? And so that's part of what Kids Doc on Wheels, and doing it as a nonprofit, it gave us that opportunity to apply for resources to close the gap for what the reimbursement may be from the insurance company, but it actually allowed us to maintain that quality and consistency.
Sure, I'll chime in. We created a supply chain business in what was supposed to be a supply chain crisis. And so we had some challenges, but I think that's when you can innovate the most, is when there's true challenge. How do you get creative? And we were forced to be. Really, one of the biggest challenges was finding trucks and finding capacity to move food. That seems like a very fundamental part of what we do. India talked about listening. When we started the business, we weren't set out to start a business. We were set out to find people working in the community already with a solution or a set of solutions. We found, through listening to stakeholders all over the food supply chain, from food banks to grocers to people in need, distributors, farmers, that there was a role to be played as a connector. So that's what we set out to do, and part of that is connecting food. Well, we needed trucks, and they were in short supply. So we found a partner and we locked in with them, and they didn't have trucks, they had Sprinters. Sprinters are those high top cargo vans that Amazon and UPS and everybody's using these days. So we had to figure out how to tailor our solution where we were looking to grow with boxes of produce, which are bulky and take up space. How did we do that? Moving short distances, and we completely turned the supply chain on its head, which is what we were trying to do. Retaaza means refresh. We're refreshing everything about how we look at food. And so the challenge we faced with the trucks actually allowed us to dig deep, get innovative, and focus on the things that were worth focusing on at the beginning of the business. So building process, building infrastructure. I talk about 4 Ps, right? It's people, process, product, and in our case, services. And then partnerships. So we built all 4 of those while struggling to find capacity. So we had our initial customers, they allowed us to grow, PIN allowed us to grow, and then we worked on all 4 of those Ps while we had the time. And now trucks are coming back available. We just bought our first truck. We've got partners. Because we've put in that process, because we've put in those partnerships, so now we're poised, we're at a point where we can accelerate. And we can do it sustainably, and it's not gonna break us. So I think that's one of the challenges we faced along the way that really actually helped us.
I know you shared that from on the flip side, from challenges with some of the bridges and the resources you're able to create for Retaaza. Can you share a little bit about the public partnerships?
Yeah, I think partnerships are such a fundamental way to go further, because you can go further together. I know we know that phrase, but it's true. PIN, just a perfect example of a public-private partnership. We can pull different levers, right? Public, private partners can pull different levers to create impact. So they are allowing us to go further by amplifying what we're doing. Things like today, now you know that we exist, right? They gave us funding for critical things that a social enterprise doesn't always get funding for it to start, right? So, you know, they believed in us when we needed support. We are serving as partners for people in the community, for nonprofits that are working in hunger, that are working with people in our communities that really need help. We are able to support them and really seek out those organizations that need that cost of food lowered. We're donating food to these organizations. Could we go directly to people in need? Sure, and we're doing that in a small way. But really, we want to work through partnerships because we want to further the mission of what they're doing. Because we can support them in the work that they're doing with the people they've already identified. We don't have to be that expert. People are already doing this great work. So how do we continue to do that over and over and over again? We're finding ways to work with other food recovery companies, Gooder, Second Helpings. These are all companies doing amazing work, Fresh Harvest. We're all in similar spaces, but different. So we can work alongside each other. It's not about competition. It's a huge problem, and if we can figure out how to feed everyone and pay all our farmers and assist everybody, if I'm out of a job and we're out of a company, that's amazing. We can find a different thing to focus on. Yeah.
Love that, thank you. I love the piece where you shared how we can all work together and share the credit, collaboration over competition. And I know, well, India, I'm more excited to collaborate with because she's a Lola member, and so we have the pleasure of seeing her use our space as her office as well as her team. And you shared with me how, you know, community and collaboration has really been able to support you in breaking some of the barriers in funding. Can you share some of that story?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say as far as the barriers in funding and the kind of removing those, it's really a testament to the ecosystem here in Atlanta. One that of course is filled with innovation and forward thinking, which is really great, but also just intentionality. So I say that a lot when I talk to different groups or just to my team members about how we're so grateful for the intentional community here. Because I would say almost all of our funding that we've raised to date has been from relationship building, collaboration, those partnerships. I actually know, I'm gonna call her out for a second, Lexi. I know she's shaking her head, but Lexi had told us about the PIN opportunity and you have to meet Jamal. There's so many things that, we think you guys could learn from being a part of this cohort. Also, this funding will be phenomenal for you. And so, today, Mini City has raised nearly $1 million that's largely non-dilutive, which is amazing. But I really have to say thank you, and we're gracious for the support of groups like PIN, but also all of the other people who are pushing support on the back end, like Lexi, who I only met a few times, but she had followed us and really encouraged us to apply. And I'm going to be really transparent and vulnerable again and say, when I saw the amount of funding and some of the things that the groups were doing, the Farm Workers Fund, I was like, man, look at the scale and impact we have. And it's one thing to hear other supporters telling you all the time, wow, you're doing great things, you can do this, but I did have a moment of imposter syndrome where I was like, I don't know if we'll get that. And so I remember Lexi kept pushing us, you definitely can do this, I think they would love it, and Jamal was immediately, even through the application process, very supportive, very yeah, you should apply, I think you would definitely find a great fit and home there, and we did. And we've been very fortunate when, again, I say that it's a testament to the ecosystem here, from Goody Nation, Joey Womack, other leaders that probably sound really familiar, who again have spotted us out and said, we're constantly, as a team, funding and looking for opportunities and trying to increase our scale and scope, but also we've been fortunate to have those community members champion us as well.
That's amazing. I know even just getting through an application process, that barrier of entry, particularly for people of color and women, it's challenging. We see it at the Lola a lot, and even just having someone say, I went through it, I had all these folks support me along the way who I didn't even know personally, is amazing to hear. We definitely need more of that, and building your tribe and support system is obviously essential for entrepreneurs, and I love to see that Kashi and both Dr. Lynette, you both brought your tribes out this morning, which is awesome. It's very early, so kudos to everyone for joining. I have one last question, and then we can open up to Q&A for each one of you. But when we look into the future, what would you like to see done for Atlanta and Georgia to continue success in entrepreneurship, innovation, and technology? And feel free, anyone can take that. I'll start.
So I guess the way I'd like to see the ecosystem grow is to embrace this really supportive, create a courageous support for each other, active support for each other. We are all eager to take a coffee and help and give advice, but how can you really help the person sitting across the table from you? What can you actively do to help them move the needle? I think that's the next step in this ecosystem. All of us are trying to figure out how to actively help somebody, but how can we extend out of this room? How can we spread that message? It really is about active support. And I think the more we do that, the further we'll go as a community.
I would say I just really love to see cities, different enterprise groups, and as Kashi said, that active support, just a further adoption or continuation adoption of technology, right? And these great ideas. So again, it's one thing to, as you said, champion it, get that coffee, but when you see these amazing ideas go from their nascent or early stage and then get fully adopted and then they become integral, it's a part of the fabric of a city, right? It's part of that story that goes behind the city. Every city loves to champion and announce that, you know, Salesforce, this or that group began here, and it's something of pride, but also to get to that point, really that adoption, embracing of those innovative technologies is what I love to see and want to continue to see. And I think Atlanta does a great job of that, so I guess it's just a call to continue to do that.
So I'm just happy to be on this panel with phenomenal people, and I think we all can complement each other and leveling the field. So you've heard me speak about, you know, closing the gap of funding and me having to go outside of what I was getting with the reimbursement. If it wasn't for Kathy Athai, who's our grant writer, she really has increased the resources for our organization. And what I would like to see is that with this panel, that we complement each other by advancing the food resources in our areas that are considered to be food deserts. I even look at the schools sometime and wonder, what are they feeding our children? You know, and want to know, what can Kashi put in our
We can help you with that.
So just advancing the technology and offering like an app. Just met Larry. So the PEN grant and opportunity is doing what its mission and purpose. It is connecting us and expanding our resources. So what can we do to keep it going is just keep doing events like this, spreading the word, and advancing the services to our communities.
Amazing. And so we've heard a little bit about how Dr. Lynette is getting making sure kids are healthy so they can learn. Kashi's getting food to those who are food insecure and fresh, nutritious food. And India, she's connecting homeless to resources to be able to build better lives, to thrive. So can you please share, these are all amazing, incredibly innovative businesses. How can we all help? What's sort of the call to action? How can people get involved? How can they learn more about you and reach out?
Sure, follow me, tag me, Instagram, Kids Doc on Wheels, as well as we have our website, kidsdoconwheels.org, and we're on social media, and I think I'm probably missing a few things, but we're out there and accessible.
So we believe that business can be a force for good. That's why we're all here. So we can do more. We can help more farmers. We can help more hungry people in our communities if we have more paying clients. So if you know people who want to use food in their business, or using food in their business, or companies that want to give food to their employees as a benefit, as a food is love thing, please make an introduction. Let us know who we can be talking to, especially in Atlanta. We're doing a lot in South Georgia and in rural areas, but we'd love to be in Atlanta supporting Atlanta businesses.
So again, Mini City really leans into the support of our community. So if you know of anyone that really could benefit from our software, we work with a variety of groups. So again, all the way from the airport to a local youth shelter, please let us know, come grab me, or just visit us at minicityaTL.com. We actually have our last event of the year, our winter luncheon, which will be at the Lola. So if you know of any groups that want to have a fabulous lunch and learn more about our software, please get in touch. We would love that.
Awesome, thank you so much. And do we have some time for a Q&A? Yeah. Okay, awesome. We can open it up if anyone has a question.
Question for India: Have you bridged the gap with veterans and homeless veterans?
So that's a great question. We do support and service a lot of veterans. We know that they have a lot of specific forms and things that they're trying to obtain that are just critical for that group. And we did kind of explore a partnership with Comcast Military because they have direct interest in hiring for veterans and whatnot. But I would say if you know or have any groups that specifically work with that population that can help us, because again, we're not as informed.
I do. U.S. Vets out of Houston. Sole purpose is homeless veterans.
Okay.
I will make that connection.
Thank you. Thank you.
Active support.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Dr. Michael Lloyd. I'm a scientist, food science, biomedical sciences, and I would like to work with all three of you. We've developed some technologies on how to process carotenoids, which can increase our metabolic rate and lower risk factors for heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and we need to grow the supply chain and the raw materials in South Georgia, and also to be able to use these as cash crops to improve our disease situation. And we also have an app we're trying to develop where we can track biomarker profiles so we can tailor personalized nutrition. So I just want to say that because it's innovative in the market now. It's kind of like food is medicine. These phytonutrients are medicine. And so, I just want to introduce myself to you all and let you know that I see interconnectivity between my innovative model and technologies and how you all can help fill the gap, and we can meet the needs of the people, which is, our metabolic rates need to be increased. So we have a way of doing that in a practical way. So I just wanted to let you all know that you're doing a great job, and I look forward to working with you guys.
Thanks, and I just want to say food is medicine. There are food pharmacies popping up now all over the country, and food pharmacy, yeah, it's an awesome concept. But Brady actually had the first one here in Atlanta, and they prescribe fresh food to their patients, and they make sure it's accessible for their community. So food is medicine. food is also love. But love is medicine too. So.
Good morning. My name is Amana, and I actually have a nonprofit in Atlanta. We're actually turning 5 November 18th. Called Thank you. And so with my nonprofit, we're always looking for opportunities. We cater to young ladies, middle school, high school, and college. And so we're always looking for opportunities to get our girls in the city volunteering, getting their hands on meaningful work and things to just inspire them to think beyond the box, look beyond the box, and really surpass the limitations that life and life experiences have placed on them. And so are there opportunities to volunteer or partner at any capacity with any of your organizations? And if there are any in the room, happy to meet any of you afterwards, but wanted to pose that.
Yes. We have community events. Actually, we have one tomorrow that's supporting one of the commercial Medicaid organizations here locally. We'll be providing health checks for the students, and our team is very small, so we can always use help. And having those young ladies there as mentors would be fabulous, so we'd love to partner with you. And we also partner with the pharmacy that actually delivers the medication to the child's home. We partner with a behavioral health specialist that provides virtual programming, as well as they will go to the child's home, and they have a bricks and mortar location. So we're always looking for partnerships, and yeah.
I mean, yes, absolutely. If you would like to, if anyone has a young person that would like to be involved, we have a ton of community events as well. And I just want to echo Kid Dr. Wills. We've actually gone to one of their community events to help out, and they've helped out with ours. It will be a phenomenal experience, I think, for any young person.
I'll also say that we have pop-up markets starting in Atlanta soon. So we will have opportunities for your kids to get involved and feed the community. But I'll also say our partners are doing amazing work, and one of our offices is at 970 Jefferson. It's got a bunch of amazing food organizations in that building. And Second Helpings Atlanta has an opportunity to get involved every Wednesday. They have they pack boxes for the community, and then on Fridays they give them out to their community partners. So that would be, we can get you connected to them as well.
Kathy Athide, happily working with Dr. Wilson-Phillips and KTAP. So Retaaza is mostly rural, and the other two, I think, mostly suburban and urban. What have been your successful methods of working or planning to work in those opposite communities, and what are also your challenges in getting there?
People in Atlanta don't, by and large, know farmers. So getting that message to resonate that we are helping farmers while at the same time helping those who are hungry. We're trying to figure out how to tailor that message so people understand why that's important. It's a little bit about education here. In South Georgia, everyone's either a farmer or knows a farmer or grew up on a farm. When I go talk around South Georgia and talk to employee groups, overwhelmingly, there's a ton of hands raised when I ask that question about who knows a farmer. So we are working to overcome that barrier. It's rooms like this that are going to help us spread that message and spread the word as to why helping those communities are important. It's ripple effects. It's infusing money into local economies. It's infusing nutrition and money into economies here in Atlanta and local neighborhoods. So figuring out how to tell our message here has been, and in other cities around Georgia, Savannah, Augusta, Macon, has been our biggest issue. But we'll figure it out. We're in the process.
Yeah, hi, my name is Carlos Calderon, and having recently gone through something of an academic exercise to trying to define partnerships for my company, from investment partners to referral partners to supplier partners to strategic partners, go-to-market partners. It became clear that there's a lot of overlap and it's not always clear. So my question to each of you is, what has been the most surprising type of partner that maybe didn't have a directly obvious connection to your business?
I would say, yeah, that's a tough one. But I would say the enterprise partners. So when people here were working with Comcast or a banking institution, many times they're like, how did that come about? Or we don't see the connection. Obviously, it's easier to see a connection between, a task force or shelter. But what we found was that a lot of enterprise groups had either a mission or something that they really align with personally, maybe their founder or just in the history of the company, or just they plain and simple have a product or solution that's tailored to communities in need, but they're not in that same space as those communities. So that was a surprising partner that came, really, I would say in the past year or so. And, even trying to think of, I think it was through kind of engagements like this, like being in those spaces. We were in an accelerator program that was powered by Comcast or whatnot, and they just saw something special. Or as you're building these relationships, you might be in a circle where, again, you're looking at those similar partnerships that you're used to. But again, if you look at the wider picture of how so many groups are kind of involved in that fabric of our nation that are trying to make it better, not just the community centers. They do a wonderful job. There's also a ton of enterprise groups that are seeking to make changes. So for us, that was the biggest one.
I'll say I've been pleasantly surprised that at least in the food inequality, hunger community here in Atlanta, that organizations do want to work together. It's not about credit and that we're competitors. It's that how can we all align together and support what each other's doing. It's been so surprising to me and amazing. So like I mentioned before, we're all able to do more together. I want to use this opportunity to just say that a partner that I feel like I really have is Jamal. It's just so great to have somebody asking you day in and day out, how can I help you? So it means a lot.
I'll have to say the same, Jamal has been because he's always trying to make the connections. But I would say that we are looking more for the school districts to see the value in our programming. And the barrier that we have met each time is financing. So, they just find it a bit difficult to understand, you're able to bill for the services that you're providing, not realizing that 30% of those children that are in your school district all children in the state of Georgia have access to insurance. But there are some of those families that do not choose to engage with insurance for reasons of being like an immigrant, or they just don't choose to do it. So we have to have ways of filling the gap. And so, our ask is if there are any members of different school districts here, if you can spread the word about Kids Doc on Wheels, because we are developing momentum with our partnership with Penn, that we're, as well as with our ongoing grant writing, that we're not necessarily having to request for them to invest, but at the same time, in order for it to be a true partnership, we do look for there to be some closure of that gap when we're running into children that do not have the resources to support their health services.
I really like that question, so I want to chime in. I just met Jamal, but I'm confident that would be my answer. But for the Lola, as a community builder and membership organization, we typically, as you mentioned, we look for corporate sponsors, community partners, event sponsors, and the one that surprised me, I shared the other day, we brought on our first social media ambassador, so an influencer to expand our reach. And I will tell you, she is so much more than that. She is Shanita Miller of Black Girl Side of Atlanta. And initially we just wanted her to record our space on Instagram, share it to our audience, very more superficial stuff to build awareness. And I will tell you, just over the short months that she and I have been able to work together, the partnerships and the collaborations and the connections she's been able to find and navigate throughout our community to create amazing events and build community amongst our Black business owners, to pulling in more folks. I think it's the shared value of how she wants to continue to build her business as well as ours that's really aligned. And our social media strategist has been, it's funny, she's been a little disappointed because she just wanted, did she share an Insta story, a story, did she create a post? And I checked in with her, I'm like, she's just so much more than that. And she's like, okay, maybe we need to find other social media ambassadors. But it was surprising, the people that kind of come find you and reach out because they understand and appreciate your mission and what you do. I think those are the ones that will surprise you. Another question?
Good morning, ladies. Kudos to all three of you. You're doing amazing work. So my question was for India. So my company is ready, and we do workforce training in VR, and we only teach 16 to 26-year-olds because those are young adults. And currently we're waiting to hear back for some Title I funding to work with alternative schools because those students are in the juvenile justice system, et cetera, and so they're aging out. And I'm sure you know many of the young adults who are unhoused, they're couch surfing. They're not in parks. So that may be another space for you because there is Title I funding to provide those types of the driver's license. Do you know how many food stamp applications I'm literate, so I can do this, but oh my gosh, this is hard. So I imagine, So I was wondering, one, do you guys do referral partnerships? Especially if we get this funding, that we could work together. And just for your company in general, we've been learning, we weren't in the K-12 segment, we were working with the CAP Worksource and just doing bigger government contracts, but there's a huge market with young adults in Atlanta that are unhoused, so that may be a customer segment for you. And would you be interested in partnering so that you can provide that support? Because the driver's license is the number. We can train you, but you have to have a driver's license and an address to get a job, so.
Absolutely, I would love to connect further and absolutely partner as well. But yes, you're right. We work with a number of youth shelters, and it is sad to see they're really excited. They've gotten all the things in place, the training and whatnot, and then it's something that they just forget about. Oh, it's with these family members I'm estranged from, or I don't have access to it. So I would love to help. But a big update for Mini City actually just this month was the release of our partner portal. So we have our tablet app, but we saw that it was limiting its scale in terms of anyone being able to access it on any device, in the library, in a school. But a big one is releasing our partner portal where we can do those referrals, right? So yeah, maybe if you're not a shelter that's utilizing the tablet in that space, we can still extend services or refer out things. So I would love to connect. Thank you.
And Dr. Lynette, offline, I would love to talk about your mobile training unit because we just got an RV to retrofit with headsets because we find in our communities there are digital deserts. So it's a crazy process. So I would love to learn what you did. It's okay, we thought we could do this ourselves. No, we need a lot of help. So I would love to talk to you about that.
Dr. WP, do not kill me. For those of you all who are just wondering, Kids Lock on Wheels, we have a 49-foot mobile medical unit, and everything that can be done in the pediatrician's office. Basically, if Johnny goes to school on Monday morning, his eyes red, oh no, send him home. No, Johnny can go to the nurse's station, and while the pediatrician's on the other end, they call the mother, and Johnny can be diagnosed as an allergy. He can go back to class. The parent does not have to leave their job. So basically, we first started out in the cab. Right now, we service 21 programs in Rockdale County. Our mobile unit goes to each school twice a month. So from 9 o'clock down around AM until 1 p.m., we're there at the school. They can sign up with the kiosk and get all the medical records, well visits. In 2 weeks, we'll be back out at the Rockdale Career Academy doing the COVID vaccines tomorrow, we're over at Way Walker Y with CareSource and doing assessments. So anything that can be done in the pediatrician's office can be done on the mobile vehicle. And you just stated that you all are in the rural area. You want to come to that. We're looking to try to get to the rural area because it is sad that over 63 counties of the 159 counties in Georgia, they do not have access to pediatric care. So it's truly a spiritual mission for Dr. Lynette Wilson-Phillips. When I left the Boy Scouts, I basically said, I'm retired. And she said, you're not retiring. You're going to be the one that go in those schools and make it happen. So we're here to serve you, and please look at us because we all need to work together for the betterment of these young children getting medical care. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Korea. I'm also a founder. I'm in the Web3 space. I teach a social emotional learning curriculum that I offer for Black and Brown students, and as well as I also am reinventing Teen Summit. So when you had mentioned, number one, KIPP Atlanta schools, they offer that particular service. So I believe that you would have an open gateway for that. But also because I'm looking to have tons of teens and I'm in the Youth Development Center, I would also like your services for to be out when the teens come I work with girls every other Saturday, but then I also have this, we work with teens and do production on Friday nights. So from around the city, because one of the gaps that we found that teens don't have anywhere to go on the weekends. And so providing that open space and that open door. So I would love to be able to connect with you on that. But I know for a fact that KIPP Atlanta schools would be more than willing to have you come into their system.
Hello, ladies. I met you at the Lola through CCI, but this actually is for you with kids on the wheels. So I have a swim school for children with special needs, and the parents, I would like to be able to connect because I think the parents, they need more information, and so they'll come to me and I give them as much as I know because I've taught autism for 10 years and I have done my ABA certifications, but they need, and even for you with the food, they need to understand the food and they need a doctor sometimes. So I have physical therapists that are on deck with me that do talk to the parents about as much help as they can that's in their realm as far as mobility, but being able to have that access to their doctors, because a lot of them with having Medicaid or the way that therapies are set up, it's weird that they don't go to their pediatrician as much. So when I'm talking to them, most of their lives revolve around their behavior therapist or their occupational therapist. Most of them have just had their first introduction to physical therapy coming through my program. And so being able to have a doctor come in sometimes and just that one day to be able to talk to them, have them, be able to, I guess, utilize your mobile office just to be able to get certain questions answered that would take them, I guess months until they're able to get to their next appointment. So I wanted to know how we could do that. You don't have to answer it right now, but that's what I wanted to do.
So Erica, please connect with Ms. Wimberly. It's Wimberly, right?
Wesley.
And we're going to help you. We're here to serve. So.
Are we going to wrap up? Okay. Well, I know these ladies will be sticking around, so please continue to reach out, but thank you so much. This was such a great way to kick off Friday morning.
Thank y'all so much. We could go on all day.
So what amazing work you're all doing, and thank you all so much. Thank you all for the questions. I want to do Bane Joyner snuck in, so we want to do a special welcome to him. Atlanta influences everything. So thankful for your partnership, for your support.
I also want to acknowledge Council President Shipman, who's here in the house. So thank you for your support. In closing, I think Cynthia and I have just a couple of things to wrap up in terms of key takeaways. You know, one, the panel was asked what they needed. You know, notice what they actually said collectively. We can talk a lot about Atlanta, you know, not getting enough VC money or capital coming in. We can talk about Series A, Series B, you know, whatever. But one asked actually what these people and organizations needed. They needed social capital. They needed for us to connect. And this is essentially the heart of the partnership, right? We can always use more financial capital. There's always a bigger mountain and a bigger hill to climb, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, my premise, the partnership's premise, is that if you don't couple that financial capital with social capital, with partnerships, it's insufficient. And this community that we see here today is testament to that. You know, when you come together and ask, what do you need? How can we help? How can I amplify and celebrate your work? That is social capital. And I think we have a wealth of it here in this ecosystem.
I completely agree. I always say that collaboration is Atlanta's superpower, and I think this was really illustrated. We kind of joke about the term co-opetition, so not kind of, you know, being in competition with one another, but leveraging that to really work together and come up with bigger solutions that'll help community. So y'all are awesome. Every single one of you, the work that you do is helping change the world. So thank you for being in Atlanta, and thank you for helping us grow our community. If there's anybody out that wants to do a shout out, you have an event coming up, anything that you want to share with the team, this is a community safe space. So does anyone have anything? There we go. I'll bring your makeover.